Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Perlin. I'm the founder and CEO of the Alternative Pain Treatment Directory. And I'm on today with Christopher Deaney. Christopher is a chronic pain sufferer and also the owner of Christopher's Organic Botanicals. And in case you're wondering, we named this the most powerful herb for pain relief, and why didn't we tell you what herb it is? That's because the herb we're going to be talking about is kratom. And kratom, Facebook does not allow us to promote kratom, doesn't allow anyone to promote kratom. They also don't allow anybody to promote marijuana on the platform. So I wasn't sure if we advertise this as a kratom information session, whether they would refuse to allow us to promote it. So we are going to be talking about kratom. It's an herb from Southeast Asia, mostly grown in Indonesia. And I'll just let Christopher start and talk about how he found out about kratom and why he got so involved with it.
Well, I found kratom back in 2015. I was looking for other herbs to deal with different issues that I have, and I tried all different types of herbs that I can come across. And I had gotten a sample of kratom in one of my orders, and I had ordered off of eBay because back in the day you were able to order off of Amazon and eBay kratom. So I had put the sample up in the cabinet for a couple months. I didn't even try it, and it was actually Christmas Day, 2015. We were done opening presents or whatever, and I was making coffee, and I was like, "Oh, what is this stuff? Let me try it." And within 20 minutes, I just couldn't believe it. I said, I just didn't realize there was something like this that could help as much as it did. And it's just everything from just so many different issues it solved for me. I was just so amazed. I mean, I have come across people who are like, "Oh yeah, I tried it. It really didn't do much for me." But yeah, that's few and far in between, that I really find that. So it seems to work for many people.
Uh-huh. So can you talk about your history of pain? I think you said that it started when you were 8 years old.
Well, I got hit by a car at 8 years old. I started going through knee dislocations. I probably went through like 40 or 50 knee dislocations before I was 16. So my first surgery was at 13 to try to correct my left knee. And that seemed to be okay. And then the right knee started going. So I think I had my second surgery on my right knee about 22. So between the ages of about 11 to about 26, I was prescribed opiates for pain. And I mean, they worked, but I don't know. I don't know how much I paid attention to in school compared to how much I could have. But, it was, I remember leaving school having to go to the chiropractor because my parents were always into alternative medicine, even when I was younger. So the chiropractor was the one thing that really helped me a lot. So I just remember being in the middle of the day, having to call my parents and pick me up because I couldn't even sit at the desk anymore. So they'd bring me over to the chiropractor, get adjusted, try to do as much natural, but also give me my pain relievers. And, I dealt with that for a lot of years. And I wish I would have known about kratom years ago. That's all. Yeah, I probably would have made things a lot easier.
So what started you looking for something else? You said that you were running herbs.
Oh, well, everything was working out good. I stopped taking the opiates for pain. I got put on prescription Aleve. Prescription Aleve worked wonders. It really did a really good job for me until I was 36 and I had a major heart attack. Basically, I was just out exercising for the day on the weekend, and I felt a little funny. And I said, "All right, what the heck's this? This doesn't feel right." And I, for whatever reason, I didn't go right away and seek help. I waited about a half an hour, 45 minutes. When I finally went and got checked, they put the EKG on me and they said, "You're having a heart attack." I said, "Get out of here. You're kidding me." I said, "I'm 36 years old. I mean, probably the best health I've been in my life." I said, "What are you talking about?" And they went in and a piece of plaque had broken off, formed a blood clot, and was stopping my heart. So they had to call the ambulance, brought me to the hospital. Hospital really couldn't do much. They had to land a helicopter, bring to Cooper Medical in Camden. That's the trauma unit. And then they did put the stents in and cleared out the blockages. So.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, they told me before I was released, guess what? No more a leave. They said, you can't be taking a leave like that anymore. I said, what am I going to take for pain? I'm 36 years old. What am I going to take? I was taking a leave. I was doing pretty good. They said, honestly, probably going back on opiates would be your best bet for your heart condition. And that was back in 2011. So I didn't want to do that. So I started looking for different herbs, different things. I really kind of struggled through it for a few years because I really didn't want to take anything. I was just so sick and tired of taking everything. So I was using cannabis a lot for pain. But as everybody knows, even in the legal market, cannabis is expensive. So it really was expensive to try to keep up and treat myself. I have a medical marijuana card, so, that really was helpful for me. But it was too expensive. And we don't have home grow in New Jersey yet. So that's a big thing too. So you have to go to the dispensary and buy it, or, go on the black market and get it, which you don't want to do either because God knows what's in that nowadays.
So can you talk a little bit about kratom, like what form it's in, what some of the pros and cons are, what types are?
Yeah, sure. Actually, right now, the market has been flooded with so many different kind of kratom products. You can probably find kratom in anything anymore. But the real form of kratom that I use every day is kratom powder, and I just make it like a tea. They do have kratom capsules for people who don't like the taste of kratom. There's kratom extracts. Kratom extracts are great for inconvenient. They're great for people who are experienced with kratom. But people who are new to kratom, I always tell everybody, start with capsules, start with powder. Start with the basics. See where you're at. Find what's good for you. And then, if you're using it for a couple of years and you're like, man, I'm having a bad day. Well, guess what? Then you could try extracts with the powder, and that might give it a little boost. And that's just my personal opinion on it. But some people swear by just only extracts. They don't take anything else. I think, for me personally, I like the full entourage effect. I like the way the kratom powder is. I like the way things work together, the way they are supposed to be naturally. So
extract takes out the main ingredient and concentrates it. Is that what an extract is?
It depends. Sometimes they do have full spectrum extracts, which are great. But they do have like more of an isolated, just all mitragynine. So there's over 40 known alkaloids in kratom. So if you just have a kratom product with just mitragynine, it's just going to be mainly energy. The mitragynine is that energy that people like. That's why I always tell people, look for kratom with a little higher mitragynine. That's more energy. Kratom with lower mitragynine is usually lower energy, even though everybody's body's a little different. But that's the basics of it.
Yes, I just want to say something about the powder versus the capsules. I was introduced to kratom by a client after I broke my ankle, and I had been in the alternative pain treatment field for a long time. I had never heard of kratom, and so my client gave me some kratom powder. She acknowledged it didn't taste very good, and she made me a chocolate milkshake with the kratom in it. And it still tasted pretty bad, but it worked. It really helped. It's the best thing that I found for pain, personally. And since that time, I bought capsules because, I just don't like the taste. A lot of people, they don't mind, but to me, anything that tastes bad, I don't want to put in my mouth. So that's just me. So you can get capsules. Yep. And Christopher,
and maybe tinctures. So there are tinctures, they have tinctures, they have capsules, they have tablets, chewable tablets, kratom honey, everything.
So can you talk a little bit about the different veins of kratom?
Yeah, there's really mainly 3 veins of kratom. There's red, green, and white. White's the more, not so much seen vein. The more veins you see on most trees in Indonesia are red and green. So that's the main veins you would see. So what they're studying, though, they're studying more between the red vein, white vein, and green vein. And they're all seeing that they're all the same alkaloids. There might be very tiny differences in them, but it's basically the alkaloids are all the same in all 3 leaves. So there's very little similarities. They're pretty much, I don't want to say they're all the same because they're not. But it's not a huge difference. It's not like cannabis where you have different just different things. You might have different chemotypes or different phenotypes of kratom, But with cannabis, they breed them and interbreed them, and we're not there yet with kratom, but I'm sure we will get there. So I'm sure there are a lot of hybrid, but.
So as I understand it, the red is more sedating and probably the best for pain, and the white is more energizing. What's that?
Not in my opinion.
Oh.
I personally love greens.
Yeah, so the green is supposed to be kind of in the middle. That
Yeah,
has
I like greens.
Relieving and energizing. I mean, I've always used them that way, that if if I'm going to bed and I'm in pain, I might use the red. If I haven't gotten enough sleep, I'll use the white because I find that it helps me focus and stay alert. And without the jittery feeling that you get when, I'm not very tolerant of caffeine. I'm also personally not very tolerant of THC in pot. I can't really tolerate pot. So I could use CBD, but I just get a better effect from kratom.
Yeah, I mean, I do bet. Like there used to be an old adage: red for bed, white for flight, green for in between. And that is a good rule, but everybody's body's a little different. I know people that take whites and it helps them go to sleep. So that goes against all of that. Me personally, the lower mitragynine reds are what I take at night when I go to sleep, because that lower mitragynine, I'm still getting all the other alkaloids, but the mitragynine isn't as high, so it's not giving me that energy boost. I don't want an energy boost at 10, 11 o'clock at night. So,
yeah. So I'm just looking at, someone had written a note. I'm in Wisconsin, so can't legally get it here. But I'm close to Michigan, and I'm looking for a place to get some to try. So there are 5 or 6 states that have made kratom illegal, and that's mostly because the FDA has been really lobbying against it and trying to prevent people from having it. They've tried to ban it nationally. They couldn't get it through Congress. They've tried to go to the World Health Organization and get them abandoned internationally. And the World Health Organization got, I think, 80,000 comments from people who said it helps me. So the World Health Organization hasn't banned it. But with all of the anti-kratom activity, some states and some localities have banned it. And you have to be very, very careful if you're in a state where it's illegal, going to another state to get it and bring it home. There's someone who lives in Florida. His name is Shayna. I don't remember her last name.
Yeah, Shayna Brown.
Right. So she's a Florida resident. She's a kratom user. She didn't even realize that she was in Alabama. She had crossed over the state line. She was a few yards over the state line into Alabama, and she was arrested and jailed and charged with pretty serious charges. I think the bail was initially like $1 million. And, they really went after her and, were threatening to lock her up for life. There were some, there were some advocates who were helping her out, who did a GoFundMe campaign, who got her bail lowered. I'm not sure what the current status is, but it can be pretty serious. When I first heard about the kratom bans, I was just thinking, oh, who's going to bother anybody about that? But, apparently some of these states take it pretty seriously.
Alabama's one of them.
Yeah, apparently, Yeah. So, I mean, she was.
Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas, Vermont, oddly enough.
Yep.
I forget what
they're working on Vermont. They're working on the AKA is working on all the states, but Vermont's pretty close. Rhode Island's pretty close, and most of that is because it was pre-2016 when like you were right when you said the FDA was going around with the misinformation campaign. What was going on is they were telling this was killing people, this and that. So the state said, "Oh, we don't want something here that's going to kill anybody. No problem." But now all the science came out. We're talking a decade later here. Because a lot of these states banned in 2014, 15. So they know the science now. So now that I think more states are going to implement the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, which is what people want as consumers. They want tested products that are safe and not going to hurt them.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the AKA is the American Kratom Association, and it's the main advocacy organization for kratom. And they do have a piece of legislation they're promoting, which is to make sure that it's safe, that it's free of contaminants, that it's tested for potency, that it's processed under good manufacturing processes, and they're trying to get that passed in every state to sort of head off these other bills that might ban it. And somebody just posted that Shayna is currently out on bail, the woman we were talking about earlier, and is facing a 10-year sentence. Yep. So, don't fool around with that. Unfortunately,
I tell people all the time, I say, we don't ship the states that are illegal. And I tell people also, don't try to get it shipped to another state next to you and then bring it home, because the last thing we want to do is see anybody go to jail for life because they have kratom. It's just not worth it. The laws will change, things will change. It's coming. It's just a slow process, but it's coming.
So, the FDA has done a lot of damage in terms of kratom. And there's a lot of controversy out there. A lot of people are very afraid of kratom. They think it's very deadly, that it's very addictive. That's just not the science. The FDA has managed to point to a few dozen cases where people have died with kratom in their system. And all of those cases the people have had other drugs in their system that are known to be deadly. And even with all of that, even if all of those cases were actually real, the sum total of them is fewer than die of opioids in one day in the United States right now. And we're talking years and years that they're pointing to. Someone is saying, do you know the oxalate content of kratom?
What was it? The what content?
Oxalates. So oxalates are found in some foods. I just know a little bit about oxalates. There's a guest post on my website by Sally Norton, who's written a book about oxalates. They're found in a lot of healthy foods like spinach and almonds. And if you get too many of them, they're actually toxic. So you can be, eating an extremely healthy diet and you think you're great, but your body's basically falling apart because, you're getting too many oxalates. So
that's something interesting I'll look into, and I'll talk to our lab to see if they can, we'll try to test for that as well.
Yeah. So, as I said, it's found in a lot of healthy foods. And it's a matter, I think, of dosage.
I've never heard anything about oxalates and kratom. So it's something I would have to look into, but I've never heard anything brought up about oxalates and kratom, but I will look into it because now it's a question I want to know.
Yeah. So, when you're ingesting kratom, you're ingesting such a small amount of something that I wouldn't think that even if it has oxalates, that it would be like a major issue. And I haven't, this is the first I've heard of that as an issue with
I've never heard of that.
Oxalates and kratom. And then what is the toxicity of kratom to the liver if one is using it regularly to deal with something? I think your comment was cut off. I don't know that it's toxic to the liver. It may be that any liver toxicity that's claimed is from contaminants rather than kratom. Christopher, do you know anything about that?
I really haven't heard any complaints from any customers we've had about issues like that. I can only tell you personally, I get regular blood work because of my heart issues and everything else, and I've never had anything come up with kidney or liver or anything function being weird. So, and my doctors all know I take kratom, and actually my cardiologist encourages it because one of the alkaloids is a calcium channel blocker. So he studied it and he actually encouraged it for me. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of negative information being spread about kratom.
There can be medication interactions with kratom. Like, I really want a list to be built. We're trying to work on a database or a list where we could have all these interactions. I hear of the most interactions from antihistamines. A lot of interactions from antihistamines of people have, not deaths, but interactions. So I don't know what it is. Maybe something with antihistamines and kratom. It's all about just studying it and understanding it better, so we can give the information to people. So we don't want to hurt people. We want to help people. So we want to give them information to help them.
Yeah, and there's not as much information out there about kratom as there is, say, about marijuana or pretty much anything else that's out there. It's sort of gotten on the radar relatively recently. But, there are, like, the National Institute of Drug Abuse is actually studying it because it's appears to be helpful for people getting off opioids. It helps with withdrawal symptoms. And so a lot of people who are addicted to opioids are finding that it's useful. It's a form of treatment for opioid addiction. And I'm trying to think who else. National Institutes of Health has studies going on about it. If you go to the Alternative Pain Treatment Directory website, which is paintreatmentdirectory.com, and you look in the video section, you will find a video of a congressional hearing that happened a few months ago from I think it was John Hopkins and National Institute of Drug Abuse, where they, gave testimony about the evidence. And they said that, there's no evidence that it's unsafe. And there is a lot of evidence that it's very effective. So anything that's coming out from what I would call legitimate sources is coming out pretty positive about kratom.
And NIDA, I believe, was given $100 million to study kratom. So that's a lot of money to study something that's, if it's really that deadly, they wouldn't be studying it like that. They're studying it for therapeutic benefits. They're trying to see what's beneficial from it.
Yeah, except that when the FDA's been studying it, they've been trying to make it look bad. I have a strong bias with the FDA. I feel from what I've seen that they're more interested in protecting the profits of pharmaceutical companies than they are in protecting public health.
I mean, I don't know what the real deal is. I've heard my own stories from both sides of the coin, I guess you can say. I have family members who are high ups in Merck Pharmaceuticals in New Jersey. I also have other family members that are herbalists and into herbs. So I'm like in the middle. Like, I understand it both, but I don't see why. Like, even if kratom, it replaced all these medications and people are off these medications and now they're taking kratom. Guess what? The pharmaceutical industry is always going to be there. People are always going to need medicine. I have to take medicine every day. Maybe they won't have to take all these medicines. Maybe they can take 3 medicines instead of 30, whatever it might be. But, I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Like, if you're helping people, you need to help people. So if that's what your point is, the Food and Drug Administration, you need to protect people, protect them and help them. This is...
I mean, the motivation for the FDA, in terms of why would they do that? Why would they favor?
It doesn't make sense, no.
Well, it does make sense because the thing is that a lot of the funding for the FDA comes from pharmaceutical company fees. And
yes, they say 60% is the new drug applications.
Yeah. So, and the new drug applications is not only an application fee, but I think that you can pay extra as a pharmaceutical company to get it through faster. So, and the other part of it is what's called the revolving door. That people who work for the FDA and treat the pharmaceutical companies well, when they leave employment at the FDA, they get nice jobs at the pharmaceutical companies.
Yep.
So,
we've seen a few already.
Salary.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we've seen a few already over the last couple of years. People so negative against kratom, their FDA commissioner, next thing you know, they get a job with Pfizer. Like, come on. Like, it is obvious, but I mean, if it's so obvious, I don't know why it's still allowed. Like, something needs to be called out about it,
Well, they also spend a lot of money on campaign donations. So, and in most countries, in all but the United States, and I think it's New Zealand, direct advertising to consumers for prescription drugs is not allowed. And I was thinking today about this. If somehow we outlawed that, um, all of the media that depend on the pharmaceutical companies to pay the bills, they'd be out because the pharmaceutical companies just pay, so much money in advertising. I tried to look at one point about what percentage of newspapers are funded by pharmaceutical company advertising, and I didn't come up with a number, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, it's just like you watch TV and you might be watching a older person station, let's say a game show network. You watch something like that. Watch it for an hour or two. See how many prescription commercials come on and how much the side effects are longer than the commercial. It's like, all right.
So, in terms of finding accurate information about kratom, you were telling me earlier, Christopher, that there was a website. Was it kratomanswers.org or something like that?
Yes, kratomanswers.org. That's run by the American Kratom Association. That has the science and everything else, all the questions you need to know, about questions and answers about kratom.
So someone is asking, how effectively does it treat your brain compared with the opiate? So I don't know what you mean, Sybil, by treating your brain. Are you saying, does it have an impact at the brain level? Can you answer that, Christopher?
I don't exactly know what the question is. How does it affect your brain? How? That's what I mean. Like, does it make you feel high? Does it make you hurt your brain? I don't know how to answer that question, but no, it doesn't make me feel high, and I don't think I have any brain damage, so maybe.
Yeah. So, it probably does have an impact on the brain because the brain is the pain generator. I know with marijuana that marijuana attaches to receptors throughout the body. I don't know if that's true with kratom.
Well, kratom does it works on the mu opioid receptors, but it doesn't attach to the receptors the way opioids do. You can kind of say like it tickles the receptors a little bit, but it does not attach. There's no respiratory depression. There's none of that. So it does work in similar areas like different other painkillers might, but it doesn't have respiratory depression. It doesn't have a lot of those other things. And besides that, it has a lot of other alkaloids that are beneficial to your body in other ways. So it's not just one thing. Like for me, kratom helps me relax. It helps me move better. It helps me do what I got to do every day. Gives me energy. There's so many different things I can say it does for me. So it does work on your brain, but besides that answer, I don't know what else.
Sybil is correcting it. She said she meant to type, how effectively does it treat your pain compared with the opiate?
So we talked about nothing then for no reason. All right, no. How does it treat what?
How does it treat your pain compared with opiates?
Honestly, you know what? I don't know what's wrong with me, but I got more effective pain relief from taking a couple prescription Aleve. And I'm talking like 500 milligrams, 600 milligrams of Aleve. That seemed to work better than opioid painkillers for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think that people who have switched from one to the other say that the kratom works better. Winifred here is saying it helps my pain levels so much better than opiates ever did. I never thought I'd be able to do the things I'm able to do now because of my pain levels until I found kratom. And Misty Brown, who's an advocate, quite an active advocate, she says it's amazing for my chronic pain and better than opiates. I know that Misty's story is on my website under Inspiring Stories. And when she was on opiates, she was barely functioning. And when she got on kratom, she was able to live a normal life again. Wouldn't you say that's true, Misty? I should try to bring her on.
Oh, yeah.
Misty, are you willing to come on? Could you give me your email address? If you are, I'll send you an invite. Can you tell me your email and I'll invite you to come on with us? Misty? Oh, she's cooking now. Yeah, it must be dinner time for some of you because I know we're nationwide and I forget where Misty lives. Um, yeah, so you can read Misty's story on my website. Again, it's paintreatmentdirectory.com.
We can
And
always do another Facebook Live with Misty and a few other people too, anytime. So
yeah, we can talk to more patients. So can you talk about the quality of kratom that's out there and what the American Kratom Association is doing about that before we have bills in every state and where your company is on that?
you mean like the quality of the products?
Right. So
Um, the AKA really doesn't. The American Kratom Association really doesn't monitor the quality of the products. It monitors your GMP processes. If you're testing your products, if you're doing everything the way a supplement should be manufactured. But as far as the quality or anything like that, there is nothing that they regulate with the quality of the product.
oh,
So
okay.
vendors like what we do, we test every batch 3 times. Initial test from Indonesia, another test when we get the batch, and then after we package it and we send it out, when it comes back, we put that test down as well, but like a release test to make sure before we put it for sale, we do one more test to make sure nothing else. The co-packer can make a mistake. Somebody else can make a mistake. So I just want to make sure that this is good. So we test it. And we have all those test results on our website. So you can look on those test results and see the different alkaloids and different quality. And, most vendors who are doing it the right way only deal with quality products. So,
Yeah, and on the American Christian Association website, you can see, the vendors that the AKA recommends in terms of purchasing kratom, and Christopher's company is on there. And maybe Charlena, you can post Christopher's link, Christopher's Organic Botanicals.com. So you're very much involved in the acquisition of kratom, right? You go to Indonesia, you have a relationship with the farmers.
well,
I
I've
think.
never been there.
Oh,
My cardiologist said it's not the greatest idea to go 16 hours into the jungle right now.
okay.
So I'm taking your word for it. But I might have to have another procedure. Once I have another procedure, then I'm going to make my way over there. I want to at least be there once or twice before, I'm not here anymore. So,
Oh, okay.
but
But you do have direct contact with the farmers, though, that you buy from.
oh yeah, it took me a lot when I first started the company to find people. My main goal when I started doing this, I said I need to find obviously good kratom. I want to buy it from somebody who is treating the farmers correctly. I want to make sure people are being treated ethically, getting paid right. It's a poor country, and there's a lot of brokers out there that were like taking advantage of people back in the day, whatever it was. So I was like, all right, let me find these people. So I ordered from about 10 different people until I found my guy. And, he was the guy. And actually his group that he works with now, Borneo World Kratom, is like basically the gold standard in Indonesia as far as GMP and what they do. When we receive our kratom from them, we have a QR code on the side of the box. I can scan that code. That goes back to the farm and the farmer who picked that kratom. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking from the leaf on the tree to you getting a package from our company. We can trace that back all the way.
Mm-hmm. So you know where it's coming from.
Yep.
Because
Basically.
you can buy kratom in a gas station or a head shop or whatever, and you don't really know what you're getting.
I mean, I've never actually got it. I have tried a couple different brands over the years, but I've never really. I don't know. I like my kratom. I like our group. Whoever whatever they do everything the right way, and the kratom's always good. I've
Mm-hmm.
never gotten a batch that's been like, oh, this is garbage.
Yeah.
It might be a little lower mitragynine because it's a red, and people are like, oh, that's not good. No, it's a lower mitragynine red. It's for a different purpose. It's not for it's for
Mm-hmm.
relaxation. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I'm very proud of all of them. We actually have a documentary that'll be coming out at some point that basically spotlights the farmers and how much kratom means to them. And that documentary, that's basically our group. So
What's
very proud of them there.
documentary? Does it have a title yet?
It's a working title, but Leaf of Hope.
Oh, okay.
So,
Wasn't there another documentary about kratom called Relief or something?
that was A Leaf of Faith in 2018. That was so good. I love that documentary.
So a leaf as in LEAF of faith?
Yeah, not the Steve Martin movie, not A Leap of Faith. It's A Leaf of Faith.
Yeah. So I wonder if people can find that online these days. Like
You
maybe.
can. It's free on YouTube. Just go on YouTube and search A Leaf of Faith, and you can get it. I forget what it's under. It's under somebody's name, like Kratom Singut or something. I don't know, but it's free, so you can watch it right there. I actually have the DVD of that. It's saved in our portable player for any time we're doing any kind of advocacy. I can just throw that documentary on and let people watch it right there. So.
If I'm a little distracted, one of my cats is trying to get into a box with something that's toxic. So, hey.
Yeah, we got the dogs and the bunnies. It's always something fun.
Yeah. So, Misty just posted the YouTube link for A Leaf of Faith. Great. And said that that's what saved. She said that's what saved me in June 2019. So I'm assuming from that, Misty, that what you mean is you saw the movie and that's how you learned about kratom. So I'm just wondering if people have other questions about kratom. One thing we didn't talk about is the cost. You had referred to it briefly early on. So what can people expect to pay for kratom?
Well, we were joking around earlier. I said, you go somewhere, you try to buy anything natural cannabis like that, forget it. The price is outrageous. So that's one thing we always tried to do. As a business, we need to make money. We need to pay our bills. We have insurance and everything else. But we didn't want a product to be so expensive that people can't afford it, because that kind of defeats the purpose. If you have something so expensive, people can't afford it, then they're not going to use it and they're not going to get help. So, right, like, the big thing here, we use the decimal system. Everywhere else uses the metric system. So we use kilos and grams. If you ever look at that on our website, we have kilos. It's 2.2 pounds. After points and everything else, it'll probably cost you about $95. And for a regular kratom consumer, that's probably lasts you a month.
I've heard people spending like only $30 to $40 a month for kratom. Depending on how much you need, how much you use.
Well, I use kratom 3 times a day at about a tablespoon, maybe 5 grams. So you figure an ounce of kratom lasts me 2 days or whatever it would be. So for me, a pound might last 3 weeks or something like that. But no, it's compared to, how long it lasts, it's cheap. I think so.
And much cheaper than you would pay for marijuana.
Oh, yeah,
and possibly, for some people, when you're talking about it, possibly replacing multiple prescription drugs, because we didn't talk about that. Besides pain, it's also good for sleep issues. It's good for anxiety. So, people could possibly be replacing several prescription drugs with kratom. And then, you're comparable to what you're paying in copay sometimes for your prescription drugs, and, much safer.
Yeah, I don't think about that with the copays. I think it's every 90 days, like $80. So there you go right there.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if anybody in the audience has questions. You can type it into the comment section. And, we'd be happy to answer them as long as we know the answer.
Yeah.
I personally use kratom very sporadically because I have a lot of different tools for pain. And it's only when, I really need something, and I don't have time to do other things like relaxation or massage or things like that, that I would use kratom. But I find that when I use it, it works. Other people use it regularly every day. Their pain is more
that's the thing. I do take breaks, but when I take a break, then I'm in pain. So it's like, all right, what do I do? I try to take, like, I call them tolerance breaks, just to kind of reset yourself. That's what anything, any type of herbs or anything. And occasionally I'll do a reset every, like, month or every 45 days or something. And I still use about the same amount of kratom I did 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've
So
never I've never gone up, or I've actually gone down, because at first I would take too much and I got nauseous, and I was like, all right, I'm not taking that much again. Like, it teaches you real quick, don't take that much, you'll throw up. So
from what I know, the main side effects are GI
yeah,
effects. Nausea, vomiting, constipation, which is
funny enough,
opioids too,
yeah,
and it has to do with dosage. So someone is asking about shelf life, like if you don't use it too often, how long is it good for?
well, that's a great question. I actually wrote a blog about that one. We have packages of kratom from 2018 in our cabinet right now, and I still use it occasionally. It's exact same that it was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're storing it in a cool, dry place, like up in a cabinet, as long as you zip the top and everything else, that stuff will last. I mean, we only have 2.5 years shelf life on our products, because that's what our tests have shown, just for, to have somebody put it on the shelf. You don't want it to go bad in a week, but 2.5 years. Well, I've tried kratom that was 7 years old, 6 years old, and it's still the same.
It still is potent.
Yep.
So someone is asking about whether it's certified organic, and are there any other ingredients in it?
There is no certified organic kratom at all, but no, there's no other ingredients in it. We probably will get there at some point once we can get more, kratom into the mainstream a little bit more. But I think we're going to see more fair trade, organic. We're going to see more of those traditional symbols going into the market, I think, moving forward. It might take a few years, but you got to figure it's got to be an agency that is certifying in Indonesia organic, and then has to be certified back in the United States too. So we're going to have to make something work there.
So when they farm kratom, it's a tree, as I understand it. It's
Yes.
a tree that's related to the coffee.
It's about the size of an oak tree.
Yeah. Do they spray the trees with pesticides or anything like that? Is that typical?
Our group does not. I really haven't heard too much about that, but also I've heard that, yeah, sometimes pesticides would show up. Somebody might have used pesticides, but ours is usually farmed or wild harvested, so they don't use pesticides in anything.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. And then when they test it for contaminants, that would show up, right?
Correct. They do. Most pesticide testing in contaminant testing is done with extracts, because that's where more of that can come in, with residual solvents and a lot of that other stuff. Kratom powder itself is tested for microbiology, heavy metals, and potency. So moving forward in 2025, just for better security for our customers and just to give everybody peace of mind, we're also going to be testing for pesticides, and we're going to start testing even further. So
someone is asking if kratom acts similar to an NSAID, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug.
Yeah, I believe. I would say I'm not sure how to answer that one, because everybody's so different. If I could say yes to somebody and then they try kratom and they're like, that didn't work. You know what I mean? So,
well, is it considered an anti-inflammatory?
I think one of the alkaloids in it is. Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that would be similar.
But I don't think, for me personally, I don't feel like it works as an anti-inflammatory as much as, say, Aleve did.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you. I don't. For other things, yes, great. But if I was like, my hand was swelling up or my knee swell up, I mean, taking the Aleve, it brings that swelling right down. Kratom's not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of people are taking it who have inflammatory conditions and find that it helps with the pain.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard that with certain people. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Well, I think we just said that is it tested for contaminants and pesticides. So yes on contaminants and pesticide testing.
It depends on the product with pesticides, but we're going to start testing all of our powders for pesticides in 2025 just to give everybody peace of mind. But we've tested for pesticides years ago on a random test. So we've never seen anything, and we know that they don't use pesticides. So
yeah, your farmers that you've sourced from don't.
Correct. We don't. So I can't speak for other people. I can't speak for other things. So I don't know. But any random test for pesticides that we've checked or we've tested, there's never been anything. So that makes me feel really good. Just to make sure they're telling the truth too, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, as we said earlier, these products are coming mostly from Indonesia. And where else?
Well, kratom originally comes from Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, Southeast Asia area. Indonesia has been the main supplier of kratom because it was banned in the other countries. Recently, Thailand overturned that ban and implemented regulations for kratom. So now Thailand is going to be a kratom producing country. Indonesia will be kratom producing. I don't know if anybody else is going to follow suit, but you know, it was the reason they were banned back in the 30s, around the same time cannabis was banned, is because you can look it up. The kratom was getting in the middle of the opium trade. People were stopping opium and going to kratom, and they weren't making the money or the tax money, whatever it was. So they banned kratom.
Yeah. So somebody is asking if there's a way of taking it that works better than others, for instance, capsules, tea, powder.
I personally like taking regular kratom powder. I'll take a scoop or my tablespoon, mix it in some warm to hot water, because it doesn't really mix. It makes more of a suspension. So I mix it up, I'll drink it, and that's how I take my kratom. I feel like capsules almost dissolve at a different rate than just drinking the kratom. Like, I don't feel the full effects that I want from taking capsules.
As quickly or at all?
What happened?
As quickly or at all when you say you don't get the same effects?
Oh, no, I get the effects, but it just seems like it dissolves differently. Like if I'm used to, okay, this is bothering me, I take kratom, I'm good 20 minutes later. This will feel like more like an hour later.
Well, you know what it might be is when you're taking it in a way that, your mouth gets coated with it, you're absorbing some of it through the mucous membranes rather than going through the digestive system. So it would tend to have a more immediate effect, I would think, just because it gets absorbed faster. But, I always do the capsules because, as I mentioned earlier, I just don't like taking nasty tasting things. So
it's a little rough.
When you talk about tea versus powder, you're really talking about putting it in a hot liquid versus a cold liquid. Is that the difference, or are you?
Well, there actually is kratom tea, like kratom tea bags. You can buy kratom tea bags. Now, with kratom tea bags, you would make that like a traditional cup of tea. You put the tea bag in a cup, put hot water on that, let it sit. I tried it, and I figured out to make it sit about 30 minutes. Honestly, and then you have to heat it up again a little bit, but the alkaloids have to be able to break down in the cup of tea. That's you know what I mean. That's how they traditionally do it in Indonesia. They'll take like a whole bunch of leaves, 20, 30 leaves, throw it in some boiling water, take it off the heat, and have cups of tea. We make it more like an instant drinkable tea, so it's a little different, but it's pretty similar. I love making the tea.
It's sort of like iced tea mix, where you get a powder and brewing a tea bag and then chilling it or whatever.
I do like brewing the tea, though, traditionally. It's different. I love it.
So in terms of inflammatory conditions, Michelle is posting that she's been taking kratom for fibromyalgia, which is considered an inflammatory condition, and it's been very helpful for that. Sybil is asking if it contains fillers.
No fillers. Actually, we take the vein. All the veins are stripped out of the leaves, so you don't have any vein material. It's all pure leaf material in our powders. And even in our tinctures, we make a tincture that's kratom oil. It's kratom oil with pressed black seed, and good other herbs, and no fillers in anything we make.
So Teresa is saying, what does it taste like?
The kratom tea itself, a lot of people tell me when they take like a kratom powder and they mix it in the hot water and drink it, a lot of people tell me it tastes like a very strong matcha tea.
Uh-huh. I think it tastes very bitter. Misty is saying it tastes like a rainy mud puddle.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. About right.
So it tastes like you're drinking mud, huh?
Yeah, it's like dirt.
Yeah, I mean, people who take it that way, they get used to it. It doesn't bother them. I'm just, that's just me. So someone is asking, is anything going to show up in a drug test for work? So my take on that would be, it depends if they're testing for it or not.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. A typical 10 panel, like what they use, a typical 10 panel drug test, no, it's not going to make a false positive for anything. And if they're testing for mitragynine, if they're testing for kratom, then yes, it's going to show up. But if they're testing for opioids, cocaine, all this other stuff, no, that's not, nothing will be, it's not that.
And it's not something that people would routinely test for.
No.
If you're being drug tested at work, it wouldn't be something that they would be testing for. It's not in the test panel or whatever.
The only place I've heard about, like in my state, New Jersey, that ever tested for kratom was drug court, because they don't want you taking anything in drug court.
So they will test for it in drug court, you're saying?
That's what I heard. Yes. I knew somebody who was through the system and told me, yes, they tested me for kratom. And I was like, wow, all right.
And what state was that? Do you know? Because I would think
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Yeah, I would think it would vary by state.
Yep. And sometimes rehabilitation centers, I heard, test for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the substance abuse treatment community is very variable when it comes to kratom. Some say it's a drug of abuse and you shouldn't use it, and others say it's helpful for getting off opioids and staying off opioids, and they encourage it. So it depends. So does kratom help? Shannon is saying in Minnesota they tested in drug court. So drug court is only if you've been arrested on a drug offense, and part of staying out of jail or prison or whatever is that you don't test positive for any drugs. Most people are not in that situation.
Yeah. So, yeah, regular standard drug tests for employment and everything else like that, they don't test for kratom. There's no need in their eyes to test for this, so they don't.
Yeah, so if you're worried about that, you could do a little research about your state and what their policies are about kratom and whatever. So Julie's asking, does kratom help with sleep? And Michelle is saying the right strain will. So as I have used red kratom for sleep. As we said earlier, red kratom is sedating and white kratom is energizing.
Yeah, red kratom is more relaxing for me. Like we have one on our website, Red Ryu. Red Ryu has like 0.7 NIT, but the rest of the alkaloids are full spectrum. So that plant right there, you're getting a relaxing feeling without the energy. So something like that, yes, that would help for, if you can't get to bed or whatever. But I wouldn't try it the first time at 11 o'clock if you can't get to bed, because I don't know how you're going to react to it. Some people might take that red and then be like, oh, my God, I was up all night. I don't want to see that. But I would just.
Yeah, I don't. Would that actually happen, that someone would be up all night after taking it? After taking red?
The only time I've ever had an issue is with it was one red that had entirely too much mitragynine in it. And I took it about 11 o'clock to go to bed, and I woke up and I was up for like an hour and a half. I'm like, oh, come on. Then I went right back to bed an hour and a half, 2 hours later, but it wasn't what I was trying to do. So I got some extra work done, but.
Yeah. So Michael Rivera is chiming in. First of all, it's evergreen tree leaf from Southeast Asia, and it is not a drug. It is a tea that has been used for hundreds of years in tribes. Now it is being farmed after decades of being hidden. Don't demonize it. No, we're fans. We don't want to demonize it, but other people are trying to do that. So that's why we're talking about that. And it does have a history. Haven't really talked about the history of it, but it's been used by Southeast Asian natives for hundreds of years.
Yep.
They chew on the leaves to get the effects, and and there's no information that says that it's harmed anybody.
Yeah, there's a researcher in Malaysia, Darshan Singh, and he said the same thing. He's been studying kratom, and he's never seen any deaths from kratom alone, ever. He said it's usually more like poly drug use or, mixed medications. And that's the other thing that they talked to me about. They said Indonesia is not like the United States. United States, everybody's taking 20 things. You're taking a Red Bull with this, with that, with a shot of that, a 5-hour energy. And like, they're not like the way we are. They're more traditional. They take one thing or a couple herbs. So they don't have the interactions, I don't think, as much as we do. But it's just understanding that herb to understand what interactions are there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So Teresa's asking what strain is best for pain. So I think the consensus is red is generally best for pain.
Well, my personal favorite is greens. I like greens for everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Julie's saying sounds like a solution to the fentanyl deaths epidemic. I think so. I mean, I think, the reality is that, um, treatment is not available. A lot of people don't, want to go for treatment, formal treatment. This is something anybody can get. I talked to someone early on in my exploration of kratom, and it was a young guy. He was in his early 20s, and he had broken his hand and was in a lot of pain, and they gave him opioids, and he got addicted. And it was so bad. His addiction was so bad that, he basically lost everything. And he overdosed and was revived a few times. He watched friends of his die of overdoses, and he just couldn't stop using the opioids. And then he heard about kratom, and the day he started using kratom, he stopped using opioids, and he was able to do that without the withdrawal. And at the time I talked to him, he was 8 months clean and going to school and getting his life back together. So there are people out there whose lives can be saved by going to kratom when they have an addiction, and it's so readily available. I mean, anybody can order it online, assuming you're not in the states that have made it illegal. And then if you need it, I'd say move.
Yeah, right. People did it with cannabis. They used to have cannabis refugees. People would move to Colorado from other states because it was legal there. So yeah, I understand that.
I mean, I'm not saying that like it would be easy, but I mean, what Alabama did to that poor woman, arresting her and whatever, it's just shameful.
It's a horrible thing. And she wasn't that far. She was just right over the line, and they had a checkpoint. And they saw the kratom and took it. And I don't know if she got charged with trafficking. I forget what it was. I think it was. And it's just, you guys are kidding me. It's a bag of kratom from a store she bought in Florida. Like, she just bought this from a store.
Yeah, I mean, that was horrible. And I don't know her. I assume she was a pain patient, and they put her in jail, and she probably didn't have any pain relief and, all the stress.
I don't know her backstory too much. I don't know what it was, the reasons.
So Julie's asking if it's been used to wean people from alcohol and nicotine. We already said opioids. It's been used for that. And are you asking about marijuana too? So, I think that the drug treatment community, as I said earlier, some of them are very anti-kratom because they say it's addictive. But I do think people have been using it to help with other kinds of addiction. Do you know anything about that, Christopher?
The only thing I do know about is the alcohol. I used to myself drink alcohol. It would help with, my pain. I drank alcohol, the pain wouldn't be there, So that was what my one issue was in between the opioids and finding kratom was the Aleve, but sometimes it didn't work that well. A drink or something would help me, help the pain a little bit. When I started taking kratom, the desire to drink alcohol went away in about a week. Like there's no desire anymore to drink alcohol. Like you do not need it in your life. So.
Yeah. So do you think that was because the kratom was getting at the problem that you were drinking alcohol for, which is the pain? Because other people drink alcohol for, other reasons, emotional reasons or whatever. They get addicted to alcohol. So do you think that it would get at the emotional drivers of alcohol?
I think it works. I think it works on a lot of things. I really do. I think the more science and the more studying we do about it, we're going to learn more. Like we might look back on 10 years of this conversation and be like, wow, look where we got. And maybe kratom won't be so mainstream. It'll be used the way it should be used. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I hope so. One of the worst opioid addiction stories I ever read was Matthew Perry, who was the guy who played Chandler on Friends. Yep. And he got addicted his first dose of Vicodin. He was in a jet skiing accident. He was kind of screwing around in the middle of making a film. And he got an injury, and the doctor who treated him on site gave him one Vicodin. And he was somebody who was just really troubled, really emotionally troubled. And when he took the Vicodin, he felt great. All of his insecurities and everything else went away. And so the next day he called the doctor and he said, "That worked great. Can I have some more?" And the doctor sent over a supply, and it just went downhill from there to the point where he was taking 45 Vicodin a day. He was going to home sales, open houses from real estate agents and stealing from people's medicine cabinets and, getting supply from multiple doctors. And he didn't, he spent like $6 million in rehab and in detoxes and just trying to get well, all kinds of therapy and whatever. And his colon burst because of opioid-induced constipation. And he ended up going through 14 surgeries for ruptured colon. And he ended up dying of a ketamine overdose. So it just took one dose for him to go down that path. And, somewhere along the line, someone had given him kratom instead. I just wonder if it wouldn't have changed the trajectory of that.
Yeah, it's like a lot of times they say, you could tell a lot of people about kratom, but if they really don't want to try it, they're just not going to try it. Some people like taking opioids all the time. Some people like drinking all the time. If they don't want to do anything about that, if that's the way they want to live, then that's what they're going to live. But they used to say, you can lead a horse to water, but can't make them drink. Well, you can tell people about kratom, but it's up to them. And I know so many people we've given samples to over the years, people we've met and gave samples. They did the same thing I did, put it up on the shelf, and like 5 months or 6 months later, they'll try it and give me a call and go, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "Yeah, I told you. I've been trying to tell you. Try it."
Yeah. Yeah. So it does work for anxiety too. So that kind of anxiety that Matthew Perry had, never feeling good enough, never feeling, valued or whatever, that came from childhood trauma. Maybe that would have helped him. Yeah, so Misty Brown is saying kratom would have saved him, Matthew Perry, and Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Prince. I think you mean Prince, not Price. Yeah, I have information on my website about different celebrities: Matthew Perry, Michael Jackson, Prince. I don't think I have Whitney Houston in there. But these are just, very public examples of people who've died from opioids, who if they were on kratom instead, they wouldn't have died. And I don't know about Whitney Houston, but I do know Michael Jackson and Prince, they were taking opioids for pain. The idea of, they were so athletic, they were jumping around the stage all the time. They had a lot of hip pain and, were prescribed opioids and, got addicted and, their trajectory was not good. So, but there are literally millions of people who are addicted to opioids who are on that path, because I think a lot of people who are addicted, it's not that they're getting high anymore or they like the high and that's what they're going after. A lot of them are trying to avoid withdrawal
or just feel normal.
Right.
At that rate.
The withdrawal is horrible if you've been, taking it a long time. And people will do anything to avoid the withdrawal. Even, early on, I read a book. I forget what the main title was, but it was from federal prosecutor to federal prisoner. And it was a guy who got addicted to opioids in the Marines. He was injured. He was being given them. And when he got out of the Marines and he moved up north, he couldn't get the same dosage of opioids. So he started buying it on the street. And it got so bad that his habit was so expensive that he actually robbed banks. And he robbed about 5 banks before he got caught. And he was a federal prosecutor. So, he ended up spending a lot of time in prison. And they made him go through withdrawal in prison with, no help. He describes what it was like being in a cell and going through withdrawal without anything. So, a lot of people who've, achieved a lot, have really been harmed by opioids. And I just think that it's a crime that, there's any resistance, there's any, attempt to keep kratom from people because it's, it's so much better. It's so much safer. It's even a better pain reliever. But, you're not going to die from kratom. And there's a pretty high likelihood you're going to die from opioids. The statistics are that 10 to 12% of people prescribed opioids end up getting addicted, which is very high.
Yeah, I didn't know the statistics are like that. But I do remember while you were talking, I thought, you know what? I remember going through a lot of the dental work I went through as a teenager because my car accident I got in bashed a bunch of my teeth up too. So I was going through the dental work. They always sent you home with a bottle of something. Percocet, Vicodin. You always went home with a bottle, not one or two, and you always went home with it. Like I just remember back in the day having so many different bottles laying around from just tooth extractions or tooth work or something.
Well, dentists are still giving out opioids, including I had some oral surgery and my dentist gave me a prescription for opioids. I said, I don't want it. And they still called it into the drugstore. And so the next time I saw him, I had a little chat,
Yeah.
And, I was like, these are really dangerous. And, people can get it. He's like, oh, I only gave you a few days worth. People can get addicted even in that,
It all goes back to people having an addictive personality and their genetics. People have an addictive personality. They're more likely to get addicted. That's all.
Yeah. And you can get addicted to anything. I tend to think I'm addicted to chocolate. I have to, excuse me, I have to have my dose every day.
Well, mine, I guess, is a little bit of sugar because I got to always have for snack at night. I always have cereal, and it's not, Wheaties. So anything with a cartoon character on it. So that's what my snack is. So
Fruit Loops.
Yep, you got it. I think I got Reese's Puffs or something in there now. So.
So Misty is saying it's a crime that recovery centers don't offer kratom, but then again, they wouldn't be able to receive grant monies. So there probably are some federal restrictions on promoting kratom.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And I mean, it would be wonderful if at some point the rehabilitation centers would even look into it and say, hey, this is something that's good. Let's talk to somebody. Maybe we can get funding for this. Something. I don't know what, but.
Yeah. Well, hopefully when things settle down politically, when we're past this election, we can start talking more again about, what we're going to do about, all kinds of alternative pain treatments, including kratom, how to make them more available.
And it's just having people understand how important kratom really is. Like, you have to get kratom in front of the right people. And then when they see it and they hear stories, and like when I tell people, I said, just tell your story. It doesn't matter to who, just tell them how kratom helped you, because that's powerful. People are like, oh, really? And they'll listen.
I'm just reading Julie Weiner's Oh No, read How Not to Die by Michael Grieger, or any of the books on plant-based eating by any of the Esselsteins. So yeah, plant-based, relying on plants. Now there are some poisonous plants, so not every plant is good for you. But I mean, plant-based diet is very nutrient dense, and is very healthy. So unless you get too many oxalates, which we were talking about earlier, you got to be careful. And there's, as I said earlier, there's an article about oxalates on my website if you want to know more about that.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that more myself. I have heard of it, but I haven't studied it as much. So.
Yeah. So, and if no one has any more questions, I'll say good night. So let me just give anybody who wants to post another comment or question a minute. See the Engine 2 7-day diet. Okay. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Christopher, for being with us. And again, his website is christophersorganicbotanicals.com. If you want to, read the information on his website.
We have a blog section too, so plenty of information on our blog section.
And on the Alternative Pain Treatment Directory, again, paintreatmentdirectory.com, there's a few articles about kratom, about different studies, and different people's stories. So if you go to paintreatmentdirectory.com and just type kratom in the search box at the top of the page, you can bring up all the information on my website about kratom, all the products, all the inspiring stories. Besides Misty's stories, there's a few other ones. So, if you want to be inspired. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Charlene, in the background, for posting links and so forth. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Have a good night.